ARRLNTS Net monthly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC. W5FC.
This is N5BB. I'm going to be opening Skynet in about 4 minutes. So if you need to use the repeater, please do so soon. This is N5BB. DARC repeater K5FC. Again, I'll be starting Skynet in about 1 minute. If you need to use the repeater,
Chairman,
please
let me make
now.
this very clear.
5BB.
If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet. This is N5BB. My name is Bill, and I'll be your net control for this session of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club, Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Central Time concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateur radio operators interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, your comments, and your suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # break break in their call sign. This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from your net control. N5 Bravo Bravo. And stations are reminded to identify the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates at 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. This is a Dallas Amateur Radio Club repeater. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using a W5FC-R station ID, which is Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check in the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's announcement and click on the hot link to check in. I'll acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we'll still do that. I'm also looking at Echolink, so if you're logged into Echolink and you want to check in there but don't want to get on voice, just type something in the box, in the text box, like check me in on text or something, and I'll be glad to do that. But again, we do encourage you to check in electronically, going to the club website. And I'm looking, and there's a number of people that have checked in electronically. Looks like about 9 so far. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net's 90 minutes long, structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, National Space Society, recent astronomical discoveries, discussion topic of the evening. Was up? It's what you can see outside. Space exploration and space history, the Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, and if we have time for it, visible satellite passages and astronomical questions and answers. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So, looking at the website, here's who's checked in so far. Okay, the people that have checked in on the website so far are Tom, KE5ICX, Cody, K5MCD, myself, Bill, N5 Bravo Bravo, Rich, AG5PM, Chaz and Bob the Cat, KF5JHA, although I don't think Bob has a license, Brenda, WB5OZL, Antonio, AG9SG, Good to see you at the Louisville Expo yesterday, Antonio. Dale in 5LIG, good to see you also there, Dale. Robert, AA5AH, and Jack, J5GPF. So that's his checked-ins so far electronically. Do we have any short-time check-ins? Anybody like to check in short-time? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet looking for short-time check-ins.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu India X-Ray, Joe and Wiley monitoring.
Very good, Joe. KG5ZIX. Do we have any other short-time check-ins to Skynet? Now let's look for RF check-ins, general RF check-ins. If you'd like to check into Skynet, please do so now with your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB, Skynet RF check-ins.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, 4873.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill Farmers Branch. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James and Carrollton. This is Whiskey 5, Golf Uniform Sierra. It's Gus, far northeast Dallas.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India WB4 MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Okay, I recognize Clay, N5OF, Tony, NT5TM, Bill, KF5ZBL, James, KG5WVL, Gus, W5GUS, and Ted, WB4MFI. Do we have any other RF check-ins to Skynet? If so, please come now. Nothing heard. Looking at the online check-in, I see two additional people. Robert, AA5AH in Richardson. Hello, Robert. And, I already got you earlier, I think. Yeah. I think I already got you earlier. Sorry about that. Okay. So I guess there's nobody else new. So looking at Echolink, nobody's typed anything over there except for Chaz, KS5JHA, who I already checked in. Chaz, you're checked in. No, I cannot check you in 3 times. 1 is sufficient. Let's see. Okay. Does anybody else want to be checked in via any mode to Skynet? If so, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Well, kind of a short net tonight as far as check-ins goes. Okay, does anybody have any general announcements for the net? This can be related to amateur radio, astronomy, space, something of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign only.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
And I recognize Tony, NT5TM. Go ahead, Tony, with your announcements of any type.
Good evening, Bill. I have just a few quick ones. After Skynet, we'll have the Afterglow movie discussion, 10:30, 10:35 or so. Was this movie horror? Was it comedy? What was it anyway? It was The House in Nightmare Park from 1973, and we'll discuss it tonight. Don't forget the MCOM 101 net is coming up this Monday at 7, and the ARRL International Digital Contest is going on this weekend right now. You get extra points for each 500 miles of difference between you and the other station. And also, the ARRL June VHF contest is next weekend. It's my favorite chance to get ready for field day. So, I hope you join us for all our nets, and I hope you do some contesting. Come on, it's easy. NT5TM, back to net.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I've got a news item. The Japanese firm iSpace has suffered another setback after its second attempt to land on the moon ended in failure 2 days ago. The Hakuto-R Mission 2, also known as Resilience, failed to touch down near the center of Mare Figueres, the Sea of Cold, in the far north of the moon, after a sensor malfunctioned during descent. Launched on the 15th of January from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, the craft spent 4 months traveling to the moon before it entered lunar orbit on 7th of May. It spent the past month completing several lunar orbital maneuvers. During its descent phase, the 2.3-meter high lander began a landing sequence that involved firing its main propulsion system to gradually decelerate and adjust its attitude. iSpace says the lander was confirmed to be nearly vertical, but then the company lost communication with the craft. The firm concludes that the laser rangefinder experienced delays attempting to measure the distance to the lunar surface during descent, meaning it was unable to decelerate sufficiently to carry out a soft landing. And they're trying to analyze the telemetry data so they can identify the details of the cause. The mission was planned to have operated for about 2 weeks. The mission had several commercial payloads worth $16 million, including a food production experiment and a deep space radiation probe. It also contained a rover, the Tenacious, which is about the size of a microwave oven, would have collected and analyzed lunar regolith. The rover would also have delivered a Swedish artwork called the Moon House, a small red cottage with white corners. The company's first attempt to land on the moon also ended in failure in 2023 when the Hakuto-R Mission 1 crashed, despite being in a vertical position as it carried out the final approach to the lunar surface. The issue then was a software problem that incorrectly assessed the craft's attitude during descent. If the latest attempt was a success, iSpace would have joined the U.S. firms Intuitive Machines and Firefly Aerospace that both successfully landed on the moon last year and in March, respectively. Although the Intuitive Machines mission wasn't completely successful, the Firefly mission was very successful. The second lunar loss cast doubt on iSpace's plans for further lunar landings. with its grand aim of establishing a lunar colony of 1,000 inhabitants for the 2040. Not going to happen if they can't land something. Okay, that's all I've got. Are there any other news items or questions about these news items before I continue? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet.
KG5ZIX, what's the deal about Elon disassembling or turning off the Dragon spaceship out of a miscommunication over some political reasons? Anybody know more details about that?
Okay, KG5ZIX. Joe, these are political things that are just rumors. I haven't heard anything from the company SpaceX, not from a particular person, but from the company about that. So I would ignore some things unless SpaceX, the company, which is responsible for this, makes any comments. In general, if I were you, I would ignore it. Okay, do we have any additional check-ins before we continue? This is N5BB, Skynet. Okay, we have an Afterglow movie this evening. Tom, KE5ICX, would you like to read your very detailed description of the house in Nightmare Park, a 1973 British horror comedy? KE5ICX, N5BB.
Why, certainly, Bill, I will. 12 Trees looked at his audience. They were a bunch of steampunk types, but since it was the turn of the century, it did make sense in a historical way. He uneasily started his reading, but it was obvious he wasn't making much of an impression as guests were using their steam-powered electric lighters, all of which were rather loud. Steam-powered lighters did require a lot of wood, bellows, and a water circulating system for each audience member. It was really loud, and 12 Trees was drowned out from all the noise. After the reading, everyone started speaking Victorian English with associated indecipherable accents and the required run-on sentences. The evening wasn't going to get much better, but 12 Trees did hear someone say, "Let's feed him to the snakes." His performance had made an impression, but not the one he was looking for. Join us for this horror, not horrible, comedy, The House in Nightmare Park from 1973, tonight at 10:30 p.m. And, it was different. Back to you, Bill, KE5ICX. Oh, wait, before I do that. Our annual Field Day movie will be Colossus, the Forbin Project from 1970 on June 28th. Now for the first time in HD. So visit us at the TARC Field Day site. Enjoy this. Computer takes over the world in the original AI before AI was terrifying. Or, why did we do that movie? It'll start at 10:30 p.m. and then following week we will discuss the film on the air. I'll give you more details next time. Back to you, Bill, KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Tom reminds me that evidently there's supposed to be an MCOM 101 net this coming Monday at 7 p.m. Is anybody on the net that knows for certain that this net's going to occur on Monday? N5BB. Well, it's on the calendar at W5FC.org, so maybe it'll occur. Emergency Communication 101 this coming Monday at 7 p.m. on this repeater. The ARL International Digital Contest is going on this weekend. the ARL VHF, June VHF contest is next weekend. And then the following weekend, we have Field Day. And if you didn't make it to the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on Tuesday evening, Dallas Amateur Radio Club will be at Field Day for a full 24 hours. And it'll be at Johnson's Outpost, which is in Farmers Branch. I don't know, mile and a half northwest of where the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meets every month, off of Valley View. And we're going to have a lot of fun. And as Tom mentioned, we'll have a movie there on Saturday evening. Does anybody have any questions about Field Day or any of these other things I've mentioned? Or any late check-ins? If so, please come now. This is Inside BB, and this is Skynet. Okay, assuming there's no more announcements. There's AMSAT nets about satellite operation. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m., there's a national AMSAT net. This is on Echolink. Go to www.amsatnet.com to learn about it. Here locally, there's 2 RF nets here locally. On Tuesday evenings, there's the AMSAT East net on this repeater, the 88 repeater, at 8 p.m. every Tuesday. On Wednesday evening at 9 p.m., there's a similar net on the Arlington 147.140 megahertz repeater. The PL tone is also 110.9, and the offset is positive. So those are the 2 AMSAT nets. Tuesday night on this repeater at 8 p.m. and Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater. The DARC has a bunch of nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. And as I mentioned earlier, we believe there's supposed to be the MCOM net is coming Monday evening at 7 p.m. This coming Saturday, we'll have TechNet on Saturday night from 7 to 8 p.m. And then next Saturday, we'll have Skynet again from 9 p.m. to 10:30. And tonight and next Saturday and every Saturday evening, we have the Afterglow movie net starting at 10:30 p.m., going to about midnight. On the first and third Sundays of the month, we have the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air at 7 p.m. on this repeater. And there is a ARL traffic net, National Traffic System net, on this repeater at 6:30 p.m. every evening. And at 9:30 p.m. every evening, there's a similar late traffic net on the Irving WA5 CKF repeater, 146.72 megahertz. Okay, next. Any more check-ins before we continue with the TAS information? This is N5BB. This is Skynet looking for check-ins.
Whiskey 1, Mike Romeo Whiskey.
W1MRW. Good evening. I've talked to you before. I've forgotten your name. Can you give us your name and your location, please?
Yeah, this is W1MRW Mike. I'm down in southern tip of Arlington, almost in Mansfield, near Terminal 1L and 287.
Really good, Mike. I got you checked in. W1MRW. Do we have any other check-ins? Don't see anybody else on Echolink or on the web check-in. Next, we have the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Chaz, KF5JHA. What's going on with the TAS? This is N5BB, Skynet.
Thank you, Bill. This is KF5JHA, Chaz. On June the 27th is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. There's also a Zoom component, too. The featured speaker, I'm not sure, and the topic, I'm not sure. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I missed the announcement of what the next coming meeting is. I'll see if I can find out sometime in the next week or two. Saturday night public observing sessions continue. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the TAS public observing sessions. Now, on the first Saturday of the month, that would be now, tonight, the stargazing is held at Fairview. So let's see now. Do we have a ham radio operator at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Come now with your call sign. Well, it was clear the last time I looked out here in Mesquite, but I don't know. It could be cloudy up there. I don't know if it was continued or if it was canceled due to the clouds. I don't know. But what you'd like to do is you can check the TAS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KF5JHA, back to N5BB.
Okay, thank you very much, Chaz. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet, run by the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Next, we'll have National Space Society events. I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. The National Space Society is a non-profit group based in the U.S., which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Search for National Space Society of North Texas in the search box on Facebook. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. The next chapter meeting will be held tomorrow afternoon, at Sunday afternoon, June the 8th. Our presentation topic for this meeting will be Welding in Space by UT Dallas professor Dr. Wei Lee. He will be virtual, probably. Our meetings are also available virtually using WebEx. Contact Bill, N5BB, if you would like to attend. The big event each year for the National Space Society is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. The next ISDC will be held in Orlando, Florida in less than 2 weeks, June 19th to the 22nd of this year. I will be there, as well as a number of other people here from North Texas. And this is N5BB. This is Skynet. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. Location is Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Anyone is welcome to attend to discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. 7 people attended our May 30th Space Rendezvous. The next Space Rendezvous event will be held on Friday evening, June the 27th. On Saturday, July 19th, the National Space Society North Texas chapter will participate in the Moon Day event at the Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas. The Mars Society is usually there, and the Dallas Amateur Radio Club and the local AMSAT groups also participate. If you have any questions about the National... Oh, by the way, the reason it's Moon Day is that it is a weekend close to the anniversary of the first landing by humans on the moon in 1969, in July of 1969. That's why it's called Moon Day. And there is an Apollo capsule on loan at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. It was on, I believe, an unmanned mission that orbited the Earth. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill N5BB at the email address listed on QRZ or at space@byrom.net, SPACE@BYROM.net. That's all I got. Do we have any questions, comments, or check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet in progress. Okay, next is time for recent astronomical discoveries. Brenda, WB5OZL, this is N5BB. Take it away.
Thank you, Bill. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled Particles Energized by Magnetic Reconnection in the Nascent Solar Wind. New research led by Southwest Research Institute scientists identified a new source of energy particles near the Sun. These definitive observations were made by instruments aboard NASA's Parker Solar Probe, which detected the powerful phenomena as the spacecraft dipped in and out of the solar corona. These new results offer fresh perspectives on how magnetic reconnection can heat the solar atmosphere, which then transmits into the solar wind, and also how solar flares accelerate a small fraction of charged particles to near relativistic speeds. Through the SWRI-led magnetospheric multiscale mission, scientists made the first direct detection of the source of magnetic reconnection near Earth, observing how this explosive physical process converts stored magnetic energy into kinetic energy and heat, said SWRI's Dr. Mahir Desai, lead author of a new paper about this research. Now Parker has made direct observations of how magnetic reconnection of the heliospheric current sheet, HCS, where the interplanetary field reverses its polarity, energizes charged particles to extremely high energies. As Parker crossed the HCS, scientists discovered a sunward-directed reconnection jet and sunward-propagating highly energetic protons, establishing their origin from HCS reconnection sites and not from unrelated processes at the Sun. Within the core of the reconnection exhaust, Parker detected trapped energetic protons 1,000 times greater than the available magnetic energy particle. Going to reset. These findings indicate that magnetic reconnection in the HCS is an important source of energetic particles in the near-sun solar wind, Desai said. Everywhere there are magnetic fields, there will be magnetic reconnection, but the Sun's magnetic fields are much stronger near the star, so there's a lot more stored energy to be released. Magnetic reconnection, when magnetic field lines converge, break apart, and reconnect in an explosive physical process, energizes particles, and generates high-speed flows. At the heart of space weather, reconnection is responsible for powerful solar events such as solar flares and coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, and drives the disturbances in Earth's space environment. Such disturbances produce spectacular auroras but can also shut down electrical power grids and disrupt satellite-based communication and navigation systems. Reports from the American Meteorological Society indicated that the powerful solar events in May 2024 wreaked havoc with farmers when extreme geomagnetic storms disrupted the precise GPS-guided navigation systems used to plant, fertilize, and harvest rows of seeds, causing an estimated loss of up to $500 million in earning potential, Desai said. Parker's access to the new data is critical, particularly as we remain in the midst of a very active solar cycle. Parker was able to make these measurements due to its record-breaking proximity to the Sun, flying through its corona up to 3 times a year. Of particular interest is understanding how the Sun's atmosphere heats up and accelerates the solar wind. Understanding these processes can also help scientists develop ways to predict and mitigate the effects of solar flares and CMEs, as well as provide new insights for laboratory fusion research. The Parker Solar Probe was developed as part of NASA's Living with a Star program to explore aspects of the Sun-Earth system that directly affect life and society. With the Living with a Star program is managed by the agency's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, for NASA's Space Mission Directorate in Washington. The Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory design, built, and operates the spacecraft and manages the mission for NASA. All right, that's it. That is from Science Daily. So back to that, WV50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Do we have any questions, comments, or check-ins? This is Skynet, N5BB, Net Control. Okay, next it's time for the discussion topic of the evening. This is why the Sun makes a figure 8 in the sky. The curious celestial phenomenon known as the analemma, that's ANALEMMA, is a reflection of Earth's orbit in tilted axis. This is by Phil Plait from Scientific American. We're all familiar with the Sun's daily motion in the sky. It rises in the east, gets higher in the sky until about noon, then begins its hours-long descent to set on the western horizon. You may also know of our star's more stately annual journey. For northern hemisphere dwellers, as summer approaches, the Sun moves a tiny bit higher in the sky every day at noon until the June solstice, when it turns around and starts to get lower every day until the December solstice. These motions are the clockwork of the sky. They repeat with enough precision that we based our measurements of passing time on them. But there are more than 2 gears in this cosmic mechanism. In addition, there are subtle and elegant, though somewhat bizarre, cogs that swings the Sun position in the sky back and forth during the year, as well as up and down. If you were to stand in the same spot every day and take a photograph of the Sun at the same clock time, ignoring daylight saving time, after a full year, the position of the Sun would form a lopsided figure 8 in the sky. This phenomenon is called the analemma, and it's a reflection of Earth's axial tilt, that's the tilt of our axis, and the ellipticity, I have a hard time saying that, ellipticity of our planet's orbit. They combine in subtle ways to create the figure 8 pattern. And the best way to understand all this is to examine these effects separately. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. First, what would be the sun's position in the sky if Earth had no axial tilt and its orbit was a perfect circle? In that case, the sun would trace the exact same path in the sky every day. If you took a daily photograph in the same place at the same time, the sun would always be at exactly the same spot. And the figure 8 analemma would collapse to a single dot. We actually have a name for this ideal motion. The mean sun. Mean meaning average. The mean sun's motion across the sky is constant and unwavering. You could literally set your clock by this hypothetical sun, and in fact we do, to define a 24-hour day that never changes. You can think of the mean sun as being a clock. It always reaches its highest point in the day at exactly noon. Now let's fiddle with that and add Earth's tilt in. Our planet is tipped over by about 23.5 degrees relative to the plane of its orbit around the sun. This changes the sun's actual position, what we call the true sun, in the sky, and causes it to deviate from the mean sun's path. The true sun is what you'd use to measure time if you had a sundial, although, perhaps sadly, over the past few centuries, they've fallen somewhat out of fashion. Earth's tilt is what causes the seasons. In the summer, when our planet's pole is tipped toward the sun, the days are longer in the northern hemisphere, and the true sun's daily path across the sky is higher. The opposite is true in winter. This immediately explains the north-south extent of the analemma. The true sun gets higher in the summer and lower in the winter. So every day at noon, it changes its height above the horizon a little bit. Over the course of a year, the true sun will move a distance in the sky equal to twice Earth's tilt, or about 47 degrees. This is compared with a 90-degree angle from the horizon to the zenith, directly overhead. So this change is pretty big. It's over half as much as the 90-degree from the horizon to the zenith. But the analemma also has an east-west extent that gives it that figure 8 shape. This, too, is largely because of Earth's tilt. Imagine you're in the northern hemisphere, facing south at noon on the December solstice, when the true sun is at its lowest noontime point in the sky all year. Every day for the next 6 months, it will move a little bit to the north, slowly at first, then accelerating, reaching a maximum rate at the equinox. Then it slows again until the summer solstice. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Because it's moving northward, it's not moving at the same speed as the mean sun. It starts to fall behind, lagging a little bit to the east, taking a little more time to reach its daily apex. It gets to its highest point a little after a clock shows noon. Every day it lags a little bit more, taking longer and longer to peak in its daily path. But here's where things get weird. As the true sun's lag increases, the rate in which it lags gets smaller every day. It's still falling behind the mean sun every day. The additional amount is smaller. Then the true sun's eastward motion stops, reverses, and starts to catch up to the mean sun. It eventually pulls ahead to the mean sun's west and reaches its apex before mean sun, moon. This continues for a few more weeks until the western motion slows, stops, and reverses. Starts moving to the east again. It eventually slows enough that the mean sun catches up to it, passes it, and the whole process starts again. This back and forth motion, coupled with the up and down motion, creates the analemma's overall figure-8 shape. The actual dependence of this motion is a complicated function of algebraic trigonometry and spherical geometry. But in the end, very roughly, over the course of a year, the sun moves ahead of the mean sun for 3 months, then behind it for another 3, then ahead again, and then again behind. The deviation of the true sun from the mean sun is what astronomers call the equation of time. It's used to figure out how much a sundial's time is off from the mean sun's 24-hour clock. And it adds up to about an 8-degree excursion to the east and the west. This is much smaller than the 47-degree north-south motion, so the analemma is narrow and tall. And this is Skynet, and this is N5BB net control. But more. This is complicated by Earth's elliptical orbit. Earth orbits at the fastest rate when it's closest to the sun, and when it's further out, it moves more slowly. When Earth is closest to the sun, called perihelion, its orbital rate is faster than average, so the true sun lags behind the mean sun. The reverse is true at the most distant orbital point from the sun, the aphelion, and the true sun moves ahead of the mean sun. If Earth had no axial tilt, its orbital ellipticity would mean that over the year the true sun would make a short line in the sky, a line deemed west. There's also a perspective effect from this. At perihelion, the true sun's motion in the sky is faster than it is at aphelion, and this affects the shape of the analemma as well. Combined with Earth's tilt, this throws off the figure 8 north-south symmetry. The southern loop, made when the sun appears to be moving faster near perihelion, is larger than the northern one and wider as well. This makes the overall shape more like a bowling pin. But this gets even more complicated. The date of perihelion, around January the 4th every year, is near but not quite the same as the December solstice, which is about December the 21st, which skews the figure 8 a bit, knocking it catawampus, distorted from perfect symmetry. So if this is true for Earth, what about other planets? They have elliptical orbits and have axial tilts as well, so they too get analemmas, but they're shaped differently. Mars, for example, is tilted by about 25 degrees, similar to Earth. Its orbit is much more elliptical, however, and that dominates the analemma, making it more teardrop-shaped. Jupiter has a tilt of only 3 degrees, but its orbit is more elliptical than Earth, making its analemma a simpler ellipse in the sky. Neptune may have the most pleasingly shaped analemma of them all. Its tilt is 28 degrees, but its orbital eccentricity is very slight, so its analemma is a nearly symmetric figure 8. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet in progress. Understand, this is all a bit complicated, maybe difficult to picture in your head. Phil Plait, that wrote this, struggled with some of the more subtle motions myself, which wasn't helped by the many incorrect descriptions of the phenomena he found online. It's perhaps surprising that the clockwork motion of the heavens isn't as straightforward as you'd hope. But he also finds beauty in all this. The repeating cycles, the subtle motions, the glorious symmetry to it. It's all predictable, combining physics, geometry, and mathematics. There is some truth to the idea of musica universalis, the music of the spheres. And like the music of great composers, there is majesty in complexity. End of article. This is Skynet, N5BB net control. And I don't... Oh, here we go. Bill, W5BLT, has checked in over the internet. Thank you, Bill. I don't see anybody on Skynet, on Echolink, has any comments there. Except Chaz said he believes the Apollo 7 command module was manned. I'm not sure. I think it was manned, but I think it just orbited the Earth, if I remember correctly. Anyway, there is an Apollo command module there at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, which is a good reason to go over and visit it at Skynet. Yes, it was the first Apollo mission. It was in Earth orbit only. Okay? So, more details. That's all I've got. Next, it's time for check-ins. Any more check-ins or comments? This is N5BB, Skynet in progress.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
And I recognize K5JD, Dedman Capel. John, it was good to see you yesterday at the Ham Expo in Louisville. Okay. So let's now go to the next section, which is What's Up? Chaz, what's up? This is N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. I could be in trouble tonight. Bob the cat is wandering around and is active, so if I get clogged up or something, it's because a cat is walking over my keyboard. Anyway, Slide Master, that would be Tom. Slide number 2, please. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what's going on astronomically, or what has gone on astronomically over the past couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide number 3. We've talked about the predicted nova of star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. It was supposed to go nova almost a year ago. Well, it hasn't done so. Now, when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 4. This image is from Tuesday, June the 5th, of the Sun from spaceweather.com. The large sunspot complexes on the Sun are so large at times that you can use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. There's not a big sunspot on the Sun right now, but stay tuned. There could be another one peeking around the edge of the Sun here in a week or so. The Sun is near its 11-year solar max. We're not sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. Now, I've talked about the solar cycle about 3 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. The moon was at first quarter phase on June the 2nd, So the current phase of the moon, and I saw it earlier tonight, is a waxing gibbous. On June the 7th, today, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit, which is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 554 kilometers. On June the 11th, the moon will be full. On June the 18th, the moon will be at third quarter phase. On June 22nd, the moon is at perigee, which is point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 363,178 kilometers. And on June the 25th, the moon will be new. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. On the days of June the 7th and 8th is the peak of the daytime Ariad meteor shower, which is up to 300 meteors per hour. Now wait, this is a daytime meteor shower. How do you observe meteors in the daytime? Believe it or not, you can use ham radio. Now, similar to observing lightning strikes using a crackling sound of a radio, you can use high-frequency radio that bounces off the signals from distant stations while the signal bounces off of the ionosphere that's disrupted by the meteor burning up in the upper atmosphere. Oh, you can get detailed information about how to observe meteors and meteor showers and by visiting the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 7. This is the marathon of what's happening over the next week or so, the next couple weeks. On June the 8th, conjunction of the planets, Jupiter and Mercury are in the western evening sky. That's tomorrow evening. Let's hope it's clear, but right now the prediction are thunderstorms coming in after dark. Slide Master, slide number 8. On June the 10th, there's a conjunction of the moon and Antares in the southwestern morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 9. On June the 16th, 17th is the peak of the June Lyrid meteor shower. With a few meteors per hour, most of the time you'll see most of the meteors the hour just before dawn. Now, to get detailed information about how to observe them, once again, you can visit the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net, or the American Meteor Society, amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 10. On June the 17th, there's a conjunction of Mars and Regulus in the western evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 11. On June the 19th, the conjunction of the moon and Saturn and Neptune in the early morning sky. Now, you'll need a telescope to see the planet Neptune. Can't do it with just your eyes, and you can't do it with a binoculars either. You need a telescope. Slide Master, slide number 12. On June the 20th at 9:42 p.m. Central Daylight Time is the summer solstice for the northern hemisphere. This is the longest day and the shortest night for the entire northern hemisphere. Interesting. This is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 13. Do any of you out there in Radioland have questions, or maybe need a fill on the information I've just given you, or maybe you just have a general astronomy question? Come now with your call sign if you need a fill or have a question.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey.
Well, John, I'm glad you're here in town. What's your comment?
Well, I wanted to ask this question, but wasn't quite sure how to put it. But, since time actually changes in reference to how close you are to a mass, how do we keep up with the timing on the satellites, between the satellites that are out there away from Earth and the clocks that travel so much slower here on Earth? How do they manage that? K5JW.
Great question. In fact, there's some other interesting things that happen too with the satellites moving, and if you want to receive or send signals, they get stretched or compressed together. That's the changing of the frequencies to the Doppler effect. So that has an effect as well. But anyway, let's get back to the timing situation. There's very accurate clocks that look at the times that the satellite thinks it is and the times that we think it is on the Earth. We use atomic clocks on the Earth. There's very few objects out there in orbit that are using atomic clocks, but they're very accurate clocks. So by looking at the difference between them, that's how they do the timing. Does that help you out at all? This is KF5JHA.
No, not exactly. I'm well aware of the Doppler stuff. I've actually shifted my radios, to pick up and transmit to the satellites. I understand the Doppler shift. But I was curious about the other thing. With the clocks running differently and timing being so important, especially on the GPS constellations and stuff. But there are some satellites that are so far out there that their timing would be different. I was just curious how people manage that, unless they figure the difference and then adjust it accordingly here on Earth. K5JW.
Since we are familiar with what the effects are, some of that is calculated too, but there's accurate clocks on the Earth, as I've said, and there's also accurate clocks on the spacecraft, and that's what they do is they look at the differences, and that helps with the timing. So, yeah, we might need to do a detailed, maybe featured topic some night about that very issue. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right, Slide Master, slide number 14. So the moon waned a couple weeks ago, so these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live, except for the people on the ISS. Until next time, actually I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep on looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet transmitting on the W5FC repeater at 146.88 megahertz. Back to our net control. Bill, it's yours.
Okay, this is N5BB. This is Skynet. Do we have any additional check-ins? I'm going to make a comment about John's question. John, what you're talking about is relativistic corrections. And there's corrections due to special and general relativity, and there's second and third order effects, and they get extremely complex. All of these are taking effect with regards to the GPS satellites, which have atomic frequency standards in each one of them. And the effects, the main effects are due to the gravity potential, how close the spacecraft is to a gravitational object like the Earth or the Sun or Saturn, and the velocity of the device, because there's also an effect on how time is experienced based on the velocity. This has nothing to do with Doppler. This has to do with relativity. There's other effects having to do with the rotation around the Earth and the coordinates, things called the sag neck, I think, and then there's some secondary effects. It's extremely complex. For GPS satellites, some of these effects essentially slow down the clock and some of them speed it up. And the combined effect is well understood, but it's extremely complex. It's understood by the people that manage the GPS system time. If those were not understood correctly and if the corrections were not applied, then the GPS system would not provide anything like the accuracy that you see. It'd be drifting all over the place. Anyway, these effects are not large amounts of absolute time as long as you're talking about intervals which are small. If you're looking at long intervals, like spacecraft, like the Voyagers that are at the edge of our solar system, they have experienced a different amount of clock time than a clock on the Earth that's more significant. But still, this is not hours or anything. It's probably measured in seconds. But anyway, the details are far too complex to discuss here. John, does that make any sense? K5JDW and 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I wasn't considering Doppler at all, but the relativistic differences, because at those distances, and with the differences between the Earth and the velocities, all those things we just said, there are maybe on the order of 3 to 10 parts per million difference, but when you're multiplying things by megacycles, then those numbers start to add up a little bit and become just a little bit more weighty. So that's where I was going. K5JW.
Well, no, if you're not counting Doppler, these effects are an absolute clock time difference, and it's a slow drift in the clock time, very slow. The Doppler affects the frequency significantly. These other effects don't really affect the frequency; they affect the time delay, or the apparent time at the distance. And that doesn't really change much with distance. It has to do with the velocity it's going, but being much further away doesn't really affect it. If it's off by 1 second, it'll be off 1 second. If it's 100 miles up above us or 1,000,000 miles away, it'll still be off by 1 second. Anyway, let's move ahead. Next, we have Gus, W5GUS. Gus, can you tell us about space exploration news? This is N5BB, Skynet. Take it away, Gus.
Okay, thank you, Bill. W5GUS here. Let's start this week's space exploration news with a question from NASA. Would you like to design the zero gravity indicator, the ZGI, that accompanies the Artemis 2 mission around the moon? If your design is one of the most compelling and resonates with the global community and the Artemis 2 crew, your design might fly into space aboard the Orion spacecraft, and you could win about $1,200. Zero gravity indicators, or the ZGIs, are small items carried aboard spacecraft that provide a visual indicator for when a spacecraft has reached the weightlessness of microgravity. You might remember a plush Snoopy doll was the ZGI for the Artemis 1 mission. For that uncrewed mission, Snoopy doll floated around tethered inside the vehicle to indicate when the Orion spacecraft had reached space. For this challenge, NASA is asking creatives from all over the world to design a new ZGI to be fabricated by NASA's Thermal Blanket Lab and then launched into space aboard the Artemis 2 mission. But you better hurry, because the deadline for submission is June the 16th. In order to submit something, you go to www.freelancer.com. That's www.freelancer.com. Okay, the next item is the NASA Sunrise mission, the Sun Radio Interferometer Space Experiment. They're reviewing the mission and the launch date, with anticipated launch no earlier than September. The heliophysics mission is sharing a ride aboard a United Launch Alliance Vulcan Centaur rocket carrying U.S. government payloads. The Sunrise mission consists of 6 toaster-sized small satellites, or small sats, that will detect storms of solar energetic particles that can endanger spacecraft and astronauts. Working together, the 6 small sats will act as a single giant radio telescope to capture in unprecedented detail data on the radio bursts associated with the sun's particle storms. Construction was completed on the small sats in 2023, and the final pre-launch testing will begin this month. Professor Susan Lepre, Director of Space Physics Research Lab at the University of Michigan, took over the mission's principal investigator in January. She says, "I'm thrilled to take the helm of this mission as principal investigator and be part of this team whose innovative work, initially spearheaded by Justin Casper, will soon come to fruition. This mission will deliver pioneering data on space weather hazards as they erupt from the sun." Okay, let's move on. After that, we'll move on to space-related birthdays from June the 1st through June the 7th. The first one up is Jeffrey Ashby, who was born June the 1st, 1954. He was on STS-93, STS-100, STS-112. Next, a little more famous name here, Pete Conrad, June 2nd, 1930. He was on Gemini 5, Gemini 11, Apollo 12, Skylab 2, and next is on June 2nd also is Mark L. Polanski, June 2nd, 1956, STS-98, STS-116, STS-127. And then on a couple days later, on June 4th, Shannon Walker, 1965, June 4, 1965, Soyuz TMA-19, Expedition 24-25, and SpaceX Crew 1, Expedition 64-65. Next, on June 4th, is Robert Kimbrough, June 4, 1967. He was on STS-126, Soyuz MS-02, Expedition 4950, SpaceX Crew 2, Expedition 65-66. And then June the 5th, Richard Searfoss, June 5th, 1956, was on STS-58, STS-76, STS-90. Okay, and then there was David Scott, June 6, 1932, Gemini 8, Apollo 9, Apollo 15, and June 6 also, but in 1956, Jay Bucky, not of the gas station fame, I don't think. Jay Bucky, June 6th, 1956, STS-90. And then Ann McCain on June 7th, 1979, Soyuz MS-11, Expedition 58-59. And we'll move, that was the last one for this time period, this part of the month. So we'll move to space history, this week in space history. Okay, June 1st, Space Shuttle Endeavour landed for the final time at 2:34 a.m. at NASA Kennedy Space Center. On board was a crew of mission STS-134, returning after completing a 14-day mission to deliver the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or the AMS, as well as spare parts to the International Space Station. Over the course of 25 missions, Endeavour spent a total of about 300 days in space, orbited Earth 4,600 times, and traveled over 122 million miles. Although Endeavour is retired, it continues to inspire. Today you can visit the orbiter up close and personal at the California Science Center in Los Angeles. Okay, and then Gemini also, space history. Gemini 4 was the NASA's 10th manned space flight. It included the first spacewalk by an American astronaut, Ed White, and he floated outside the spacecraft for about 20 minutes and was able to push himself out of the capsule, maybe pull himself out, by using a handheld maneuvering oxygen jet gun. Okay, let's move to June 3rd, 1966. Astronauts Thomas Stafford and Eugene Cornyn launched from Launch Complex 19, Kennedy Space Center, at 13:39 UTC aboard Gemini 9A, 9 Alpha. The Gemini was a two-man space capsule built by McDonnell Aircraft. The launch vehicle was a Titan II GLV rocket. Stafford and Cernan were the original Gemini 9 backup crew, but the primary crew of Charles Bassett and Elliot S.E.E., both were killed in an aircraft accident 3 months earlier. The three-day mission was to rendezvous and dock with a Gina target docking adapter in low Earth orbit, and for Gene Cernan to perform several spacewalks and to test a backpack maneuvering unit. The mission was renamed Gemini 9 Alpha after the original May 17th launch was scrubbed when the mission's Gina target vehicle was destroyed after a launch failure. The mission was flown June 3 through the 6th, 66, after launch of the backup augmented target docking adapter. And Gemini 9A successfully rendezvoused with the ATDA on June the 3rd. However, the protective shroud had not separated from the Agena, and docking with it was not possible. So we'll move on to June 4, 1962. It's kind of a famous name here. We all probably remember Neil Armstrong. June 4, 1962, Neil Armstrong submitted his application to be an astronaut. He was selected for the second astronaut group 3 months later, the group was known as New 9. He was part of a select group of civilian test pilots and military pilots who were chosen to become astronauts. Armstrong's selection marked the beginning of his journey in space, which accumulated in his historical first steps on the moon in 1969. Which was just 7 years later. Okay, June 7th, 1965. I believe this will be the last entry for this week, and we'll move on to the next section. But on June 7, June 7, 1965, after a 4-day mission and 62 orbits, NASA's Gemini 4 mission returned to Earth with an Atlantic Ocean splashdown. Gemini 4 was the second crewed space flight in NASA's Project Gemini, occurring in June 65. It was the 10th crewed American space flight, including 2 X-15 flights at altitudes exceeding 100 kilometers, which makes them quote into space. The highlight of the mission was the first spacewalk by an American, during which Ed White floated free outside the spacecraft, tethered to it for approximately 23 minutes. Okay, and the flight also included the first attempt to make a space rendezvous as they attempted to maneuver the craft close to the Titan II upper stage, which launched it into orbit, but this was not successful. The flight was the first American flight to perform many scientific experiments in space, including the use of a sextant to investigate the use of celestial navigation for lunar flight in the Apollo program. Okay, and next we'll go to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, and back to you, Bill, W5GUS.
Very fun there, Gus. By the way, if you want to sign up on the Zero Gravity Indicator at that website, you need to search in there for the search page and then search for ZGI, and that will let you find the details. You have to register in advance, and again, it's due in 9 days, the final solution. So you've got to get really going there. There's a lot of specific requirements. Like it has to fit within a 6x6x6 box. Okay, let's see. Looking at who is here, I noticed nobody on the web form, but on Echolink, I see our old friend Shane, W0MBC, in Missouri, I believe. Shane, would you like to check in on voice? And is Bethany listening this evening? W0MBC. This is Inside BB and Skynet.
Net Control, this is W0MBC, Shane, Blue Springs, Missouri. I'm sorry Bethany is not present at the moment, but I just haven't checked in a while. I thought I'd see what's going on, everybody. I hope you're all doing good down there in Texas. W0MBC out.
Well, very good, Shane. Yeah, this is Bill, Inside BB. Remember you very well from checking in many months ago, you and Bethany, so hope you are doing well in Blue Springs, Missouri, suburb of Kansas City. Okay, next, let's see, one more try. Any other check-ins before we go to the Constellation of the Week?
Kilo 0, Juliet, India, November.
And Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey with a question for Gus.
Okay, first, the K0J station. Please give me your call sign again phonetically, your name and your location.
Kilo 0, Juliet, India, November, Jared, in Far East Dallas.
Very good. K0JIN. Good to meet you there, Jared. Welcome to the net. John, K5JDW. Go on and ask Gus your questions. You can talk to him directly.
Thanks, sir. Gus, quick question. I could probably look up online, but for the NASA Zero Gravity device, are biologics allowed? You know, it could be insects or, you know, anything else. I was wondering if anything biological is allowed with that, or does it have to be a mechanical device? K5JDW.
Yeah, you need to go beat the rules. There are very specific materials that can be used. They're essentially fabric-like things. You want to say any more, Gus?
No, I don't have anything more to add, John and Bill. Thanks for the extra information that you looked up, Bill, on that. Yeah, John, I would just go to that website. I don't think a fly would work. It worked for the flight across the Atlantic, Lindbergh's flight, but I don't think that would show a weightless condition up in space. But it should be interesting to find out which one wins. Okay, back to net, W5GUS.
Okay. By the way, there's a lot of winners a whole bunch of people will get these monetary prizes, adults, kids in school, etc. But NASA will then pick one of those winners for the actual one they build. It has to be no more than 0.75 pounds, has to fit in the 6-inch by 6-inch by 6-inch box, has to be built of nothing other than Nomex thread, it's fake fur fabric, fake fabric, polyester fabric, cotton fabric, beta cloth, Kevlar or vinyl, Kapton VDA film, or polyfill for stuffing. So that's all that it can be made out of, John. Does that answer your question? K5JDW and 5BB, Skynet.
Yeah, thank you for that, Bill and Gus. K5JDW.
Okay, next, let's move ahead to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Chaz, tell us about the constellations and come with your bad jokes. KF5JHA and 5BB, Skynet in progress. And by the way, we're very, very late in the net.
What do you mean by bad jokes? I think they're all good. Let me make a suggestion, Mr. Net Control. Since we're really running late, can we postpone Scorpius the Scorpion for next week? It's going to be in the sky for a couple of months, so would that be okay? We can postpone the Constellation of the Week until next week. KF5JHA.
I think that is a good choice. Let's do that. Okay, Tom, K5ICX. We've got 4 minutes. You want to give us any important space launches for the week?
Yeah, I can give you one or two. Bill, this is KE5ICX. We have the Starlink launch. We got the Axiom mission coming up. This will be on June 10th. That'll be a manned mission from Launch Complex 39A at Cape Kennedy. Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 4th private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. Includes the Axiom Space Director of Human Spaceflight, who will serve as the commander of the mission. This will be her 5th trip to space and her 2nd time commanding a private astronaut mission. Her name is Shubhusu Shukla of the Indian Air Force and astronaut with the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, will be the pilot on board the SpaceX Crew Dragon. There'll also be Shalas Wesniewski, a Polish member of the European Space Agency and Astronaut Reserve Group, and Tibor Kapu, a Hungarian member of the Hungarian to Orbit astronaut program, will serve as the mission specialist. These 4 astronauts will spend up to 14 days docked to the ISS after launching from Kennedy Space Center on the Falcon 9 rocket. Following the separation, the booster will separate and target a touchdown at the landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. Then I'll give you one more. We have on June 10th, Falcon 9 Starlink 10-24 mission. This will be from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. A little more than 8 minutes after the liftoff, first stage will target a landing on a drone ship positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. And that's it, Bill. That's all I'm doing. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Normal state.
Very good, Tom. Do we have any last-minute check-ins before I close the net? This is Skynet in progress. Tonight we had 23 hams participating. I want to thanks to all of you who checked in on this net this evening, and thanks especially to our new presenter, Gus W5GUS, who's doing a great job. We hope you'll all join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. always looking for net control stations for this and all the other Dallas Amateur Radio Club nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as all our audio and video streams, video archives, etc., by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. And I want to remind everybody that we will be doing a net on Field Day evening, June the 28th. That's 3 weeks from now. And after Skynet, we will have an Afterglow in person. That's right, in person there at the Johnson's Outpost on Valley View Lane and in Farmers Branch. We will have a movie in person, the Colossus Project. And the rumor is that K5ICX will be visiting in person to participate. So that'll be great fun. So Skynet continues after quite a few years. Until next Saturday night, this is N5BB closing a net at 10:30 p.m. Central Time. We're turning the repeater to, well, normal amateur use, except there's Afterglow coming up in about 5 minutes. 73, everybody. Enjoy the evening discovering the universe. K5ICX, this is N5BB closing Skynet. And over to you, Tom, for Afterglow.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for doing the net this evening. We will be back in about 5 minutes. We'll be discussing the movie The House in Nightmare Park from 1973. About 5 minutes. Even if you didn't see it, come on by and check in anyway. You'll be interested in what we have to say about this very strange movie. About 5 minutes. KE5ICX. All right, your popcorn should be popped, and now it is time for tonight's Afterglow movie, The House in Nightmare Park. It has a U.S. title of Crazy House and the House of the Laughing Dead. It's a 1973 British comedy horror film. Yeah, they put those two things together, directed by Peter Sykes, starring Frankie Howerd, who is a very popular comedian in Britain back in the 1970s. Ray Milland, yeah, that Ray Milland, and Hugh Burton. It was one of a number of British comedy films that carried the successful British horror genre closely associated with the Hammer horror films. Its plot follows that of the traditional old dark horse story. A struggling actor is hired to perform a dramatic reading at a country house. The people who hired him have ulterior motives. Now, a little bit about the film. The film was made by Burrover 2. Now, Burrover 2 is a female. You wouldn't get that from the name, but she actually is known for being an English television producer, media executive, and agent. She's founder and chairman of the independent television production company Hartswood Films. With her ALS, she had a deal with Anglo-EMI Films under Nat Cohen. She'd made some popular movies with Frankie Howerd in the past, including Up Pompeii, Up the Chastity Belt, and Up the Front. Peter Sykes said he was offered the film by producer Clive Exton off the back of Demons of the Mind. So Frankie Howerd says that the film I enjoyed the making the most because it was a comedy thriller, and I like that kind of film. That means The House on Nightmare Park. So it was filmed at Pinewood Studios over 6 weeks, from 6 November to the 16th of December of '72. The film received the first unanimously good press I'd had for a picture in a long, long time, Howard said. You expect, naturally, some divergence of opinion, but as I recall it, no one critic panned The House in Nightmare Park. Howard's biographer opined that the film, while among the actor's best, did not, however, change the course of his career. It did not spirit him off Cricklewood to Hollywood. It amounted to nothing more, but also nothing less than an intriguing, rather engaging interlude before he resumed his regular work in other more familiar media, which is mainly television and reacting and talking to the audience, breaking the fourth wall, which he did quite frequently, and you almost get that impression when you watch the film. I had never heard of this guy before myself, but apparently he was very popular in Britain and was well known, much like probably the equivalent would be like Don Knotts or I don't know, I can't think of the other guy right now. Oh, Jerry Lewis, the guy who I can't stand. Similar genre, about the same time, actually a few years later in the 70s rather than the 60s. So there you have it. I'm not going to give you the review of this thing, or the synopsis. It's very long, surprisingly. But you could imagine the guy in the house and the old house and getting an inheritance and all of that. You can fill in the blanks as you go. It's not that hard to figure out when we go through the discussion. So this is what we're going to do, like we always do. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins. I'll take your call sign, your name, and did you see the film? Even if you haven't seen the film, that's okay. You can still check in, and we're going to ask you if you want to see this film after we give our unvarnished review of the film. And I have a feeling there's going to be some positives and some negatives on that. So let's go ahead, do that, then we'll start talking about the film, which will be the plot, followed by characterization, followed by, if we have time, special effects, music, lighting, sound, all that good stuff. So we'll go ahead and start with check-ins. Please come with your call sign name. Did you see our film tonight, The House in Nightmare Park? Here we go.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. Yes, I saw the movie, and I took notes, so I know I can remember who everybody's name is.
Okay, we've got N5DB, Bill in Irving. He saw the film. Anyone else?
This is WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas, and yes, I saw the movie.
Okay, well, we picked up WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas. Anyone else? We may be slim pickings tonight. All right, well, we'll start with you two and me, and we'll see. There may be some people sauntering in a little bit later. We had a short intro, so maybe they just kind of, been doing some extra time with snacks. That sometimes happens, So we'll go ahead and start at the top with the basic plot of the film. Did the storyline work for you? And we'll start with Bill, N5DB. What do you think from KE5ICX?
This is N5DB. Thank you, Tom. Wow, we have a very short net. Yes, the plot actually did work for me. I thought it was, there were some twists near the end, but which you need, so it's not completely predictable. But I think the plot did work for me. It was rather straightforward. We don't learn all the details until we're in it a while. But you have a family with the guy, the older brother in the family that has all the money is dead. And it turns out he's got a living relative, a son, that doesn't even know that he's the son of this guy. And the rest of the family invites this son to come over and give them some entertainment. So I thought the basic premise was fine, and it's one of those normal, kind of murder things, kind of a mystery where people are dying and you're wondering who's doing it, but it's got to be a family member. And there's a butler, and there's snakes, and there's an old mansion, and there's no telephone, and it's got all the stuff from one of these typical old horror movies. Scenes at night. But the interesting thing about it just kind of builds as a comedy. There are some comedic parts to it, but it's not a ha-ha, laugh comedy. There's a few comedic things that Frankie Howard and some of the other people end up doing that are kind of funny, but it's not one where you'd be laughing out loud, though there is a comedic aspect to it, I would say. So, I guess that's my take. I think the plot was okay, and the premise was okay, and the movie was not a perfect movie, but it was a watchable movie, N5DB.
All right, thank you, Bill. I guess that's fair enough. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with anything that you had to say. All right, let's go to Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, your thoughts on the plot for our movie tonight, The House in Nightmare Park.
WB5OZL. Well, I thought the plot was pretty easy to understand. I would say straightforward. It had twists and turns, but this is a genre of movies, your Agatha Christie movies and your Orient Express and whodunit movies, and it had all the tropes, the big old house and people creeping around and thunderstorms, and, the usual stuff to help create the feeling and the whole look and feel of the movie. I didn't have too much trouble telling the characters apart, which is a little surprising because that often happens in these kinds of movies. It wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't a bad movie either. I thought the actors were pretty good, and the story carried along. Would not watch it again, but it kept my attention. I'll have to say that. It did hold my attention the whole time, and I thought the actors did okay, and the story was okay. Okay, back to Nat, WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Let's see. I'll go ahead and ask if there's anyone else out there who would like to check in to the Afterglow Movie Net. Please come with your call. Your name and did you see the movie? Tonight's movie is The House in Nightmare Park. Please come now.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, W5BLT 12. And yes, I did see this movie.
This is 90 Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I did see the movie. This is November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I did see the movie.
Kilo 5. Juliet Delta Whiskey, John Coppell. I have not seen the movie. Good to hear you, Tom. And don't call me later. I'm just going to be in and out in the background. K5JW.
All right, well, we got a few people checked in. This is good. We've got, I hope I got everybody. If I didn't, I'm going to take another round after this. W5DLT, Bill, yes, he saw the film. KB9SOK, Sean Fort Worth, yes, he saw the film. Tony, NT5TM, he's in Dallas, yes, he saw the film. And John, K5GDW over in Coppell, I think he's knocking around the shack doing some busy work, but he did not see the film. And no, we won't call on you, John. I don't want to embarrass you because, I know this is probably, you're going to be jealous because you're going to love this movie. Okay, anyone else? Did I miss anyone? Please come now. Okay, I think I got everybody. We'll go ahead and go to Bill, W5BLT. Bill, we're on the first round, talking about plot. What did you think about this one for The House in Nightmare Park?
Well, thanks, Tom.
I did like this movie. I had a hard time at first following it, and then it kind of made sense more towards the end. So that's one of the reasons I'm on the net tonight, is to try to fill in some missing pieces. I don't know that I considered it a comedy, but maybe there were things visually that were happening that, being blind, I just didn't pick up on. And so I'm kind of wondering about that. Typically, I pick up on the British humor, and I love British movies. So I don't think this is a bad movie. And the plot, we've seen before. There's money involved, and somebody dying. Although this had some twists at the end with the mom, and so yeah, it was a good. It was a good movie, especially compared to some of the ones we've seen. I kind of liked this one. It was a nice little break, but I did have a hard time understanding. I don't know. I just didn't find some of the stuff funny there, but maybe there were things visually going on that, like I said, I just couldn't pick up on. So I may not have a lot for tonight, but again, always appreciate everybody's input, filling in the details I missed. W5BLT, back to net control.
All right, very good. Thank you, Bill. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, what did you think about our movie tonight from KB5I6?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, as everybody said, it was kind of a murder mystery kind of film. Pretty typical of that era, the kind of plot. It was very easy to follow, very straightforward. I actually found it pretty predictable. Even at the end, I figured the girl actually wasn't dead, and I just thought the brother was in on it too, but he did actually die. So there was a little bit of it that I didn't figure out ahead of time, but most of it was pretty predictable. But then again, we've seen hundreds of these style films. Not necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But for me, the plot was fine. Obviously, there's not a lot of science fiction here. It's obviously not typically like we like to poke holes in it. So there's none of that. But for me, the rough part of this film, which kind of, for me, made the movie drag, and there was times I started to look at my watch, kind of a situation, thinking, okay, when's this thing going to be over with? Because it was a pretty basic premise, and they did really drag it out. And they tried to slip in a little bit of, I would say maybe classic British humor. I typically like, some of the British humor, but this was really dry. And yeah, there was a little bit of physical comedy, a lot of, visual as far as like facial expressions and stuff like that. And then they just had very long, drawn-out scenes, even at the beginning, showing how bad of a ridiculous actor that he was. But once again, humor is tough because it's always subjective, right? I guess like any film, but humor is tougher because, what one person considers funny, somebody else doesn't. It's not like an action film where people can kind of agree, or, even some other types of movies. So humor is a tough one to do, and trying to make it appeal to a huge amount of people. And this one just didn't appeal to me. I found it very bland, a little too, it's like they wanted to kind of lean into it, but they didn't. So it's one of those things where they either need to lean fully into it or not do the comedy at all. And they just went in just enough for me to kind of mess it up, unfortunately. And for this one, yeah, I won't be rewatching this one because of that. Because overall, to be honest, I just didn't really enjoy it that much. But obviously, as already been said, compared to some of the snickers we've watched, it was watchable. I just didn't really find it that entertaining because of the humor. So, not much to say else other than that. So, yeah, back to net. This is KB9SOK.
All right, very good. So reactions are right down the line with what the critics thought way back in 1973. We will continue. Tony, NT5TM, your thoughts on the plot for our fine film, The House in Nightmare Park.
Well, this was really not my thing. I love verbal humor, be it Groucho Marx, or Yes Minister, or Yes Prime Minister. Okay, yeah, not a big spread there. But still, I love verbal humor. I love witticisms. And the protagonist in this movie just kept screaming. I think the only visual joke was he grabbed a halberd to try to hurt another character, and the head of the halberd fell off. I mean, it was just not... This was not my cup of tea. That said, they clearly meant it to be. This was not a cheap movie. It was so well lit. It was well acted, even though I didn't like the acting choices. All this, hiking up from the ground floor to the attic where the homicidal grandmother was kept. They really tried. They really tried. And I can imagine liking this movie if my sense of humor were different. Unfortunately, it's not. So I actually didn't think this movie was very funny. I thought the plot dragged a little bit with the heirs gloating too much over, we need to get the money, we need to find the diamonds, we need to get the money, we need to find the diamonds. Don't you people even have day jobs? Of course not, because it's a British movie about ne'er-do-wells who are rich and expecting their allowance from daddy. So I thought they made a very good effort, but sadly, I was not as engaged as they meant me to be. Still, a good effort. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. You sound like me. Okay. Anyone else want to check in before I make my comments? Tonight's movie, The House in Nightmare Park. Please come to your call. Okay, hearing none. Tony, I'm with you. This was not a film that I was particularly fond of. I would agree with the critics, and I agree with folks here that it looks good. But when you mix comedy and horror together, it's kind of strange. It's really never really super funny, nor is it particularly frightening. You can look at the Abbott and Costello films with the Meet Frankenstein, I think, and Dracula. Those films with the actors that appeared in the straight versions of those shows show up, and they play the fall guy a lot of times, and even with the same sets, and it's just never really scary. It doesn't have that going for it, but it doesn't always work out that way with comedy. It's a very special thing for it to work. It reminds me of Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts, which was it was an okay film, but it was comedy. I was never scared, and I saw it when I was a kid, so I was never really very scared about the whole thing. It was just a comedy, and that was a better comedy, by the way. I think Don Knotts was better. Now, this guy reminds me of Jerry Lewis. I am not a Jerry Lewis fan. I can only take Jerry Lewis in very small doses, like about a minute and a half. And after that, I'm over him. And I kind of felt that way about Howard here. I'm sure he's very fun to watch in the television shows and that, which I've not seen. And maybe that helps it a little bit, but the gasps and the screams, and it got old very quickly. And I just didn't feel really energized by did like the number with the family, with the clown face stuff was quite bizarre. I want to go back and watch that again because that was very unusual and kind of interesting in a strange way. But, you know, that's the way it is. It was written by Terry Nation, was one of the, I think, 3 writers that were involved in it. Terry Nation's well known from doing work in British television, probably most notably in Doctor Who. So you've seen a few of his stories and creating the Daleks and all that. So if you're familiar with Doctor Who, then you know who Terry Nation is. But I didn't feel overly excited or particularly inspired by the plot. So not as much fun in that regard. Other parts of the film, which we'll discuss here in a second, I think were better. But I think the weakest part of this was basically the plot and implementation by our main star here, which we'll get into here in a moment. So lukewarm, I'll give it about a C-. Will I watch it again? Probably not, with the exception of that one weird number with the family members. That was kind of fun. I enjoyed that in some weird, perverted way. I'm not sure why. Okay, well, let us continue then. We will start at the top of the list. We'll talk about characterization. We may zoom through everything tonight. We'll see. We have about, 9 or 10 people in this thing. So, Bill, you have notes? Tell us what you think about characterization in our fine film tonight. N5BB from KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom, this is N5BB. Well, let's go through the characters. We had Foster 12 Trees, which was a really weird name. And it was an adopted name. His name was actually Nigel Anthony Julian A. something Hawthorne on his birth certificate. But nope, Foster 12 Trees. For whatever reason they picked that name. Anyway, and he was the comedy part of it. He was, according to a number of the family members, he was a fool, and even worse terms than fool. But he made it through everything. He kind of slugged through everything, so he wasn't a complete fool. He was just a partial fool. And so a lot of the comedy was him either not understanding what was going on or doing something a little goofy or acting goofy. And that was a lot of the humor in it. Then we had Stuart Henderson, who kind of ran the house, played by Ray Milland. Now, Ray Milland, I'm sure you've all seen other things with Ray Milland. He was a very famous actor back in the 60s, 70s, going into the 80s. He did everything from films to TV. He was all over everything. And, like I say, very, very popular actor. And he played both kind of regular good characters, and he played villains in a number of things. And this is one of the ones where he was playing a villain. He was pretty good at playing a villain. He looked like he was an okay guy, but he could play somebody with really deep secrets. He was Stuart Henderson. And then we had Jessica, his sister, and she seemed to just play along with whatever Stuart wanted to do. And Stuart was wanting to do all kinds of bad things. So Victor was his ill brother. We didn't see Victor. We just saw a dummy head in Victor's place because Victor was dead. And Stuart and Jessica were trying to make believe that Victor was still alive in a room, but he was dead. He wasn't there. He'd already been buried because they buried him acting like their mother had died. But she really wasn't dead. She was still alive in the house. And homicidal. They locked her in her room, essentially, which was kind of weird. Then we had two other brothers that visited Reggie, and Reggie had a daughter, Verity. And Verity was trying to be really sweet on Foster, 12 Trees, the protagonist. Trying to kind of say, well, let's go and kind of run away with the money ourselves. Later in the movie, she apparently is killed, but she wasn't really killed then, and she came back and turned out to be very dastardly. And she and Stuart got hauled away by the police at the end. Then we had, so Verity's father was Reggie, a brother, and Reggie really hated Foster. So there was some comedy and some stress there between Reggie and Foster. Ernest was the other brother that came in, and his wife was Agnes. And Ernest figured out the clue for where the money was hidden, or roughly where it was hidden, the basic clue, the original clue. Patel was the Indian servant and just did regular Indian servant things. Not too much of a personality there, just followed directions and did whatever was asked for him. And I mentioned the mother, I don't remember her name, that was homicidal. She was crazy. There were some weird things in the movie, characterization. They dressed up in like clowns or puppets or dolls or something with all this makeup and things. And this is evidently something they did when they were kids or something. And there was the music that was played, and they sang and kind of did a little dance. And that was pretty weird. But it did add a little interest to the movie. You know, it's one of those things that was a very weird thing they were doing. It was a weird family. And it did add a little interest. It made it appear not quite so bland, a little bit spicy. And Ernest got killed as one of those people dressed up there. What else? I think one of the craziest stupid things that Foster, the protagonist, said was when one of the brothers, I think it was Ernest, was a veterinarian, but Foster was going to have him do some dental work on him, which of course was stupid, but he was really a veterinarian. Anyway, part of that little dialogue, Foster said, and be careful what you do, or you'll violate your hypocritical oath. Not your Hippocratic oath, your hypocritical oath. So that's a little humor they slid in there from time to time. It's like a little bit of Marx Brothers, just barely kind of hidden in there. Again, all the family members there were willing to kill Foster to get their money. Every single one of them. And so at least they were consistent. Foster was kind of a do whatever he needed to, didn't take things very seriously, kind of lived by the seat of his pants, and was kind of an itinerant entertainer. Anyway, I guess that's it. there were, there were personalities, and you could see them, and they were consistent, and they named the people, and if you were careful and wrote it down like I did, you could keep track of who was who, and, I think it made sense. It was a little complex, because there were quite a few people there. I think that's it for now in 5EB.
Characterization and acting. Go ahead. WB50ZL from KE5I6.
This is WB50ZL. Well, characters are very typical. They were all, most of them, a certain type. And of course you've got the unexplained, the girl who's so sweet and demure, and then she's a horrible person. So you got those twists that you expect in these kind of shows, where people are not as they seem. So you got that, which does kind of help the movie, add some interest to the movie, because you don't really know what's going to happen. I thought they were all pretty good actors. It was British, and they make pretty good shows. So, and I read a thing about British actors. They all go to acting school, whereas in America, they all just go to Hollywood and get discovered, or, try out for something. And if you can get the part, you're in. A lot of our really great actors never went to acting school, but they do in Britain. Well, let's see. I think Bill really covered all those characters pretty well, so I don't have too much else to say. I did like the snakes. That was pretty cool. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Bill went into detail about the actors, and you decided you liked the snakes. Okay, so we're covering everything. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what you think about the acting, characterization, and the snakes?
Well, they all sounded British to me. That's about all I could say. Bill did a much better job than this Bill. I just had a hard time with following who was who, and so this helps. I know I'm really failing on this movie. Unlike the rest of you who said I won't go back and watch this again, I must watch it again after you fill in all these details and who the characters were and what happened, because I think it will make much more sense now. Back to net control.
Ooh, that was quick. Okay. Thank you, Bill. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, characterization and acting from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Not a lot to add. Bill pretty well covered it. The actors did fine. Of course, the family was, they're all greedy, and they played the part well. We've seen this in many movies, and they got what was coming to them at the end. Yeah, that part was fine. Our main character, which I can't remember his name, that's how close attention I paid to this one. The actor, once again, this just wasn't my cup of tea. Not that he did a bad job, but I just didn't find it funny. But I'm also not a fan of comedies where people act stupid just for the sake of acting stupid. And I kind of feel like he did this through most of it. Not real bad to the point of being a complete bumbling idiot, but kind of along those lines. This is probably going to be a very unpopular thing, but, people like Jack Black that plays just characters that are just completely, dumb. I just don't enjoy those. This was like a very tame version of that, but I just didn't find it funny. So that was my problem with that. Not really the actor's fault. I mean, it's how it was written, I'm sure, so it just, not, you got to work with what you're given, so I'm sure he is good at other stuff. But anyway, not a lot for this round really either, so back to that. KB9 is okay.
All right, thank you, Sean. Next up is Tony. Same verse, new verse, same as the first. So, Tony, tell us what you think about characterization and acting.
Well, I did enjoy the characters, but I was also frustrated by them. I really felt that the difference between our protagonist, who just screamed hysterically when he saw a snake. Really? Really? I see a lot of snakes. And then all the other characters who are very British, stiff upper lip. Oh, yes, you saw some snakes. Yes, we sacrificed some animals to Kelly. But okay, it doesn't matter. We're just going to keep on. Oh, someone got stabbed in the back in the middle of our play acting. Oh, well, it just doesn't matter. We won't react to that. I really didn't enjoy that contrast. I thought that was excessive and overdone. Everyone worked hard. I think that contrast was not the fault of the individual actors. I think that was the fault of either the director or the producer, but I didn't like it. So, they tried hard, they worked well, they were very professional, but, not what I wanted. NT5TM.
Okay, well, I don't disagree with you, Tony. So let's see, we're at the bottom of the list. I'll go ahead and ask if anyone would like to check in. Tonight's movie is The House in Nightmare Park from 1973, a British horror comedy. If you'd like to check in, just say you're out there, or you did see the film, or you'd like to talk about it, or all of the above, please come with your call now.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jane there, Wefford. I saw the first bits of it, but I went to sleep, and I really don't have anything to say. I'm just checking in. I'm enjoying listening to comments here. That's probably the only enjoyment I'll get out of this. Sorry, I'm taking too long. KG5BZW.
All right, well, no problem, Jay. I'm glad you checked in. And I always have to contribute to every net. Just enjoy and sit back and listen in. That's perfectly fine, too. John's out there doing the same thing, so no problem. And we're glad you're there. Okay, my comments on it, everybody's pretty much made the comments I thought. I was rather intrigued by the performance by John Bennett. A very short bit as Patel, the Indian valet, I guess is what you would call him, or butler. I guess a butler through the whole thing. And I looked him up, of course. And, of course, he's British. And like somebody had mentioned earlier, like British actors, they have a lot of background training. And this guy went to the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama and he was active as an actor from 1958 to 2005. But the stuff he was in, all sorts of things I love, you know. The Survivors, The Avengers, The Saint, The Professionals, all great. Forsyte Saga. He was in that in 1967. Blake 7, I, Claudius, Rosemary and Thyme, Anna Karenina, I think the movie version. Some others in here. Films that you're aware of. He was in The Fifth Element. I don't know what he played in that. I have to find out. Minority Report. Charlotte Gray. And then in theater, he was in mostly minor roles, but his zillion Shakespearean productions for John Gielgud, Richard II. But again, these are secondary characters he was in, but he was in everything, man. He was in musicals, King and I, and Sound of Music, and oh my God, it goes on and on and on and on. Now those are production plays, musical productions, and he was also BBC Drama Repertory Theater for radio as well. Everything you can imagine. And the guy only had like a bit part in this, but he was quite entertaining, I thought. So I thought that was rather interesting. It's a very distinctive look, too. You'll see. I'm going to have, I should be able to pick him out from the films that I mentioned earlier, but we'll see. I'm going to go back and look and see if I can find the guy. Other than that, let's see. Ray Milland, I think, kind of phoned his performance in. People say he gave a restrained performance. I think he gave one where he just really didn't care that he was in the movie. I think he was tapped because I believe he's American, and they needed an American influence so they could sell it in America. Otherwise, the film is very, very, very British and probably wouldn't do well in the U.S., and I'm not entirely sure it did anyway. But at any rate, he was okay, but kind of not super inspired. Although there's a couple of scenes in there, he's okay. Out of the film, I think he actually did acting for about 5, maybe 10 minutes through the entire film. The rest of the Hendersons, all of the actors pretty much worked off each other, which was perfectly fine in a British sort of way. So I think they handled the performances just fine. It was adequate. The over-the-top mommy, Ami Delamain, was pretty good. I think she's done a number of different things too. I didn't look her up, but she played mostly old women, I guess, from India. But at any rate, she was pretty good in her performance, I thought, overall. So no problem there. I don't really have much more to add to all those performances. I like the Patel character the best. Strangely, I don't know why. Oh, and the snakes were wonderful too. Who doesn't love a snake once in a while? All right, well, that's it there. Let's see. Done that. Okay, so now, go ahead and mark these. And we'll go back up to the top. We're going to get through all 3 sections tonight, I think. So we'll begin with Bill again, N5BB. We will talk about technical aspects of the film, special effects, photography, lighting, anything that you may have missed in the first 2 rounds. Go for it. It's open mic time. So N5BB, Bill, go ahead. Any comments? Go ahead.
I don't have much to add, Tom. This is N5BB. If there was music, I missed it. Maybe there was, but I don't remember it. Put it that way. The filming was pretty good, although like a lot of these movies, when they get to be nighttime scenes, sometimes when they get converted over to digital, they get too hard to see. It's really dim at night. But everything else was okay. The quality was pretty good of everything. The snake pit looked pretty dangerous. That was kind of an interesting kind of add to the whole thing, was that the the snake pit and everything around that snake pit was kind of weird. But again, the family was weird, and they had to add something like that to the horror movie, some kind of dangerous animal. What else? Of course, the comic thing of the last scene where he's out there on the lawn, and it's a huge area that he's going to have to try to dig to find where in the world the diamonds are, which I thought was pretty funny. Even though they had the clue, he burned up the map to how the details on how to do it, which means he was a bit of a klutz, of course. I can't think of any other technical things to say. The house was a big part of the whole thing, and it'd be interesting to know how much of the film was filmed in that one big manor house, or whether big portions of it were filmed on sets. I wonder. I don't have a clue. I'm not good at figuring that out by watching the movie. I think that's all I got, Tom. In 5BB, again, an okay movie, but nothing special. This is in 5BB.
All right, very good, Bill. I'm going to mention this now simply because I'll forget later on. But this film was used again a couple of years later as the estate of Frankenfurter from, I can't remember the film. Jeez. What is that film? Now I forgot. Jeez.
Rocky Horror?
That is the same property, and I remember for Rocky Horror, they did film on the interior because they didn't have a lot of money to make that film. So, in fact, it was cold. There was no heat, and it was very, very cold. So, if you can compare between the two films, go back and look at the two of them and see if the interiors match, that might tell you something. I don't know. I think the interiors probably were done on set for this particular movie because they had more money for it, whereas Rocky Horror probably did film on location both inside and out. So there you have it. Okay, let's see here. Next is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, anything you want to say about the film, technical or otherwise, from KE5ACX?
This is WB50ZL. We'll say I don't know what the budget was, but I have a feeling they came in pretty low budget. They found somebody willing to let them use their old house, and they probably wore their clothes from home, and I didn't see a lot of extravagant expenses in this at all, and that's okay. I didn't even notice the music. Maybe it was so good that it didn't stand out, but usually I do that. Usually I pay attention. I'm aware of how whatever it's doing for me. Well, and I wonder about these diamonds. Even a fortune in diamonds is very, very tiny. So, digging for diamonds, he's likely to miss them just because they're so little. All right, back to that, WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. We'll zip on through these, I guess, tonight. Next is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your thoughts, special effects, anything, music, whatever you want to talk about, or something that you may have missed on the first 2 rounds. Go ahead.
No pressure here. I thought the guy's first name was David. I'm trying to remember the last name now, because I was trying to look up who did the music for this movie, and there was somebody that had done music for this type of movie before, but yeah, it wasn't really notable. And then I was trying to find out with GPT on how much this movie cost to make and how much it actually brought in at the box office, and I came back with nothing available. So I'm not sure. Yeah, it wasn't really anything notable about the music. It didn't annoy me, but it didn't stay in my memory either. So I think it was kind of your just typical music, and I don't think there was anything really special about it. But I was curious on how much it cost to make on the movie and how much it actually brought in, but I was not able to find anything on that. W5V, back to net control.
All right, thank you, Bill. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your final thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, not a lot to add there. The audio was fine. I don't remember the music either, other than that little number that they did, the one that you liked. Yeah, there really was. I mean, the lighting and stuff was fine. I will make a comment about that. It was sometimes in today's movies, they're really bad now about making everything super dark, hard to see. So it was kind of nice that it was well lit. Even in the quote the dark scenes, you could at least see what was actually going on. So I did appreciate that, because today's movies, they don't seem to like to light anything up. But yeah, not a lot to add on this round either. So not a lot of special effects. The house was okay, I guess. Enjoyed the conversation as always. Looking forward to the next one. Thanks. This is KB9SOK.
All right, next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your final comments. Please go ahead.
Well, I would like to have something new to say, but I don't. The music must have been adequate, because I have nothing to say about it, and that feels so bad. I would like to praise it for having a wonderful, theme, or condemn it for being distracting, but I can't say either. Likewise, it was well filmed. There was always just enough light, but never too much. I really don't think they made a lot of mistakes in this movie. I think it was meant to be a very successful film. We've watched a lot of cheap junk, and this was clearly not part of that. I really don't think they ever tried to screw up on purpose. It was just that, unfortunately, they didn't succeed either. There was no wonderful, stellar moment. Wish that could have happened. Wish we could have had something great that we could talk about next year. I don't think it happened. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Well, this has got to be a record. I haven't made my on. It was all there, 100 minutes long, and it was a lot of repetition throughout the film, and it was a standard plot. Not much to say, no secret sauce. About the only thing that everybody seems to have mentioned that was the weird presentation dance number, singing, whatever the heck that was, which I enjoyed the heck out of. That was the best part of the movie, and that's about the only thing I'm going to remember from this movie is that weird family presentation they did. Well, let's see. As far as the effects, sound, and all that, yeah, it was. I agree with you, Tony. Production was up to snuff and was watchable, and everything worked out just fine. Now, one thing that I did want to talk about in parting, especially from the 1960s and the 1970s, if you know, having grown up during that time, and most of you have some experience with this, watching television on a small screen with a little tinny speaker, and how that worked out. Watching television shows back then in the 60s and 70s, or watching them today on MeTV, you can hear the sound very well. The sets are well lit, almost overlit, especially for color productions. Very easy to see everything. But if you watched a movie on television back in the 60s and 70s, you had some issues because it was meant for a big screen. And so you had pan and scan so that you could fill the entire screen and you could see what people were doing. And you had what was called compressed sound. You would notice that if there was very quiet times during the movie, the background noise would start to come up. It sounded as though somebody had turned up the sensitivity on the microphone, and they did. It's a part of the sound compression thing. And then when they'd start to speak, that background sound from the optical soundtrack would go back down again until the next scene, or until the person stopped speaking, and then it would come back up again. It was fairly common. And then with movies as well, although it was less so before digital, optically, a lot of times for motion pictures, they would actually film during the day and then put a lens on it, darken it, but you could still see people fairly well. But even on a big screen, it was an old trick to do nighttime shots. It's shot during the day with a filter that made it look dark, because filming at night was really difficult, if not impossible. Fast forward to today, and now you have, if you remember, digital sound. Dolby Digital helped to fix some of the sound and quietness, although I don't think it's perfect for that. And there's been DTS and other formats that have helped with sound, although I still find it difficult to understand. And I'm old. Let me reset. Now, one thing that's happened is that everything is now digital. Digital television, digital transmission modes, digital streaming, digital. Well, Dolby now does Dolby Digital Video. And so they fix the picture, much like broadcast studios used to set up and send signals, mainly in the mid-1980s through the 90s and on after that, where they controlled your picture quality for you. You don't have to press any buttons. You used to have hue and color and all that, and those things are hidden from you. You can make those changes if you want, but pretty much the color correction is correct, or as best as can be expected from your television. It receives the signal and it's supposed to deliver it dutifully. That includes the background contrast and all of that. So when you watch something, in most cases, if it's all digital, you can see it. There are exceptions to the rule. But when you have something like this, which is old analog, and it is shifted over to digital, if it's just a simple conversion, you're going to get dark picture. It's going to be difficult to see under even the best of conditions. If it's been properly transferred to digital, and there are companies that specialize in this, both with older analog films and with newer films, such as Dolby Digital, you can get a decent picture, you can get the right contrast and all of that automatically. So that's something to consider. And in fact, when you go and you look at Criterion discs, which are considered the standard, gold standard when it comes to digital transfer, you will see that in their productions. They do a really good job with the transfers from optical film, or from their digital transfers usually are bar none some of the best on the market. And that's why that happens. So just something interesting. You may have known that. I find it interesting because it always pops on the screen on my TV here. It says Dolby Digital, digital picture, digital video. I forget what it says. It always pops up in the corner to tell me that and remind me that that's being used. And DTS sound is another. So that's it for me. So next week's movie, well, let me tell you what happened. I had get into my Facebook account and destroy it. Well, they managed to cause it to mess up or something. I don't know. At any rate, it got shut down by the Meta people over at Facebook, and I sent them what they needed, and they gave access to it to me again, and I think in a matter of about an hour, it was shut down again, and that hour was while we were doing this net. So I had brief access to it and then gone again. So there was some sort of a leak. I went back and looked at old email passwords and all of that to try and lock out whatever happened. I still don't know because Facebook does a horrible job of telling you what happened. They don't tell you anything, and then they lock you out. I may be locked out permanently from my 15-year-old account. At any rate, the long and short of it is that everything that I ever put on Facebook is gone. It's completely been removed or hidden. That includes our movie list, which I had posted. So I have no movie list. I assumed it would always be there. Boy, was I wrong about that. So now I have just a traditional list I put in Google Docs that I can get. Not that it means anything, but at any rate, let me... Next week's movie is from 2015. It's called Equals. And it's Naya and Silas beginning forbidden and passionate romance in a futuristic society where emotions have been outlawed, leading them to attempt to escape. I read some reviews on it, and it actually got pretty good reviews over on Tubi TV, so it's free to watch with ads. That will be next week's movie, Equals. I'll put out the info. Unfortunately, I cannot post to my own Facebook page, so you're just going to have to get it through email. So if you use Facebook normally and you want this linked information, I may ask Brenda or somebody to go ahead and post it for me since I have no access to my own account. And we'll try that until I get this thing back, or I really don't have much hope that I'm going to get any of this stuff back. But at any rate, that's what it is. Next week's movie Equals from 2015. So say 7-3 to everybody. We got 15 minutes to spare. I'll watch the last part of Night Stalker and maybe a little bit of Lost in Space. They got to be very close to their last episodes for season 3, and then we go back to the original black and white. We shall see. So good night. Have a good rest of your evening and rest of your weekend. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at Field Day coming up in June, a little less than 3 weeks away. Remember, as always, to buy bonds. So, bye-bye.
Erin still hopes, although she has gone to bed, that we can watch Spaceballs someday. NT5TM. I'm always glad to hear you, and so is Erin.
I'll put it down the list. I think it's actually available, so yeah, I'll put it in. If it's a preview that we can watch, I think you're right. I think it's available right now for free. I just put it on my Google Docs list, so I'll make sure I don't forget it next time. I hope that works, Tony. KE5ICX.
I hope so. I'm just hoping everyone gets to hear her voice on the radio someday. She loves that movie. NT5TM.
Well, Tony, you're in luck. I hate to say it, or not. They have a VHS version of the movie on archive.org, so it's there. I don't know. I'll look and see if it's 4x3 as well. I don't know. Maybe the movie was in 4x3. It might have been. But yes, we can watch it. It is available on archive.org for sure.
All right. I hope it works. NT5TM.